No more brat summer.
No undisclosed personal relationships with former presidential candidates.
Just vibes. This is Vibes Only, the podcast that promises to check the vibes of American politics every week. And the vibes this week.
This is the craziest combination of scandals I've ever seen. But the most insane part of this is that he said all of this stuff in the comment section of a porn site.
We'll touch on that truly wild story while doing an overview of the state of the race, particularly in the battleground states.
We'll also fill you in on our door-knocking adventures this weekend, play an It's Giving, pull up our group chat, and leave you with a good vibe. Let's get into it. Hello, Brian.
Hi, Gigi. How we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little tired this morning because I was out late at the Charlie XCX concert.
I woke up, we're recording slightly earlier today. I woke up and I went on Instagram and I was like, oh, Ryan was at Charlie. I saw Lorde showed up and Addison Rae. Big night.
It was wild. It was wild. We all just had a very brat summer, and New York, I think, was feeling it especially hard. So Madison Square Garden was alive. It felt like I was back at the convention when Michelle Obama was speaking. That was the energy.
Well, I love that you're comparing the vibes. I also haven't seen you since this weekend when we were knocking on some doors. How did it go for you? We haven't talked about it.
We have not debriefed. We didn't ride back together. It was so fun. So we had over 200 people show up, as you know, to knock doors in Macungie, Pennsylvania.
Macungie.
Which is just outside of Allentown. And this is like swing district central. We were in a swingy state legislative district inside of a swingy congressional district inside of a state that could determine both the presidential race and control of the U.S. Senate. Mm-hmm. So super important area. And I was gagged by how many voters were undecided that I talked to. It was crazy. What was your vibe check?
Same. It was a little, I was Hey, it was a little, I was scared. I got back in the car, we drove back, and I was like, okay, there's a lot of work to be done. And we knew going in, it's like you said, a swing district, but I was pretty like, oh, wow, you don't have a plan? You don't know who you're voting for yet? Okay.
Yeah. If you are out here on the internet like, oh, everything's underestimating Kamala, we're actually just going to pull off this landslide, which I do think is like a secret kind of unspoken vibe that I'm getting from some people left of center online. Go to Pennsylvania or Arizona or Nevada or Wisconsin or something else, but like go knock on someone's door and have some conversations, and you will eat some humble pie really quick.
Yeah. And I would like double down on that. Actually sign up to canvass.
100%.
Especially if you're in New York, sign up with Knock for Democracy, go canvass in Pennsylvania. It really does. You could be the only voter contact that person has, and based on your conversation, that could sway them to go vote for who you want them to.
No one I spoke to shared that someone else had come to their door before this cycle.
I unfortunately got someone who had just been knocked, and he was not pleased. And I was like, okay, have a great day, sir.
Like same day?
Same day. Yeah, it was like so strange. It was just like that one door on the turf. But did you get a sense that folks were like annoyed that New Yorkers were knocking on their door?
No, I think that that's always people's fear. I think that people's big fears that they express to me are that someone's going to like call them out in some way for not living in the district, or number two, that they're going to get like hardcore Trumpers and they're going to get screamed at.
Right.
And both are exceedingly rare. We sort of did a flash poll on the bus on the way back, conducted by yours truly. And almost every single person on the bus raised their hand when I asked, were people nicer than you expected? And also almost everyone raised their hand to say they would come back and do it again next week if they could.
Great.
So yeah, I never once have had someone question where I'm from or why I'm doing this. Like, people like in general that you're volunteering and engaging in the election. And I had some really great conversations. What about you? Did you have any intense pushback or negative interaction?
I had one. I was in an area that was either like pretty starkly like Trump, or like they were just super keen on not telling me anything, which was okay, that's their right. And there was one lady who was comically negative. It wasn't even like a bad experience, it was objectively funny. A caricature of a pissed off woman. So I was just like, add it to the list. But there was some really great interactions too. Like there was a father who answered the door, and I was asking the questions, and it was for his 18-year-old daughter who like didn't want to come to the door because she was shy, but he was like asking, like I gave my whole spiel, and then he's like, what do you think, does that sound good, are you aligned with that, like to his daughter, in like a really sweet way. And she's like, yeah, because he saw that what was happening
There's
and
nobody
really
there. It's just an empty room that he's
LOL. No,
talking to.
I mean, she was like sweet. She was like in the kitchen, just like, why are there human beings at the door talking about the election? You know what I mean? But it was sweet to see her father like giving her the independence of like confirming that she was okay with what I was pitching. It was a sweet moment, and she was 18, so she had just registered. That was a moment of light in the day. How about you?
I had no one yell at us. I had one person say, "Why would I vote for a Democrat?" And I said, "Thanks so much. Have a great day." Like in a negative way. Like he was being satirical. Like it
No,
was
totally,
the conversation
totally.
was over when he said that, and I was like, "Okay, all good." And then we moved
That's when
on.
you're like, have a wonderful day,
Yeah,
sir.
exactly. And then my I think it was my very next house where I asked someone, "Oh yeah," like I was talking to this very nice woman. She was I'm gonna say in her 30s, and I said, "Oh, are you planning to vote in November? Do you know who you're planning to vote for?" And she said, "I'm gonna vote for who you think a teacher would vote for." And I was like, "Well, in my book, that means blank, 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 blank. I think that you would like find these candidates aligned." And she's like, "I think you're right." And I was like, "Hey." And then I got to like highlight who these down ballot races were, who she was not familiar with, but lived in one of the most competitive areas in one of the most competitive states in the country. And so that also felt like a huge win where I found someone who was already mission aligned, already planning to vote Democratic, but literally did not know who these candidates were. And now we know for sure that she's going to vote for the people that are going to advance her interests and those of her students and all of that, which was awesome. So that was really cool.
Totally. And we're going to talk about this episode, but the margins in these states, right, are so small. You need to relational organize. If you're not willing to door knock, I totally get it. It definitely takes a certain type of person to do it. You don't want a phone bank. I get it, kind of, but you got to text all your friends and family.
100%. If you are not convinced yet that every vote matters, look no further than the latest data that we have. Shall we?
Let's get into it.
Everyone, I need you to like take a deep breath before we cover this.
And or clench your butt, because it's worthy of it.
Big inhale, big butt clench.
And you can release when this segment is over. Or not. You can release on November 6th.
So we know that the election is going to be decided in the Electoral College by Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, and North Carolina. Those are the 7 that are going to determine the outcome of the election. And we just got new data this week that basically shows these states are as close as they've ever been, especially this close to an election where most of the margins in these races are under 2 points, which is within the margin of error. And so neck and neck is an understatement. We're talking about a game of inches at this point.
So right now, looking at the numbers, it does look like the blue wall, which is the Wisconsin, Michigan.
It's Wisconsin.
It's Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the blue wall. That is her most likely path to victory. 270 to win. It's not just the name of a website. It is what you actually need from the Electoral College to clinch the White House.
And those 3 states in recent elections, like last couple decades, always swing the same way, which I think is not reported on enough. But the electorates of each are very similar, and typically they move in the same direction. It's by really narrow margins, so it's not hard to see how that could be broken when Wisconsin is occasionally decided by less than a point, as it has been in the last few cycles. But so far, in recent memory, all 3 jumped in the same direction. That was true for Biden in 2020 and for Trump in 2016. The other great news on the blue wall, Glennis, to your point, is that this week a Nebraska state senator came out and said that he would not support a change to how Nebraska allocates their electoral votes, which means Kamala can still win one electoral vote from the state of Nebraska, which she needs in order to make the blue wall plan work. Because if she wins Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, she gets to exactly 270 electoral votes.
And just to take a step back, Nebraska is one of the few states that is not winner takes all for the electoral college. So you do have an opportunity to split electoral college votes based on congressional districts and how they vote, and Nebraska is one of them.
And for those that have wondered or get really in the weeds, if that were to happen, if Nebraska changed and then deprived her of that one vote, she won the rest of the blue wall and nothing else, it would be an electoral college tie at 269 votes each. And then it would go to the House of Representatives, where each state gets one vote. And it basically goes down to which party controls most of the delegation from that state. And Republicans would almost certainly elect Donald Trump in the House of Representatives. So that's a big deal. And it was a big win when that Nebraska legislator came out and said, nope, not going to help Trump try to rig this one.
Yeah, I mean, thank God. And then also just speaks to the importance of knowing who you're voting for at the state level, which I think we would both die on that hill.
Yep.
Arizona. Let's talk about sunny, very, very hot, very warm Arizona. So Joe Biden in 2020, he only won Arizona by 10,457 votes. Not a lot of votes. That's like less than half the people you were in MSG with last night watching Charlie.
Literally.
So there's some stuff happening in Arizona which we think might get more people to the polls. One of them being Prop 139, which I would give Arizonians a state constitutional right to an abortion, which they don't currently have. And I think many people recall the crazy law that was like alive in Arizona for like a week or two, the 1864 bill. Deja talked about this, written by the predator, the predator of a man that basically took away all women's right to reproductive care
and punish doctors with a felony, like prison time,
like Texas does.
Right.
You actually did a wonderful cheat sheet or microdose episode on this. When abortion's on the ballot, Dems win. People show up for their right to reproductive health care.
Track record includes wins in Kansas, Ohio, Montana, Kentucky, Vermont, Michigan.
There's some chatter, and in Florida as well. Florida has Prop 4, which is a similar state constitutional amendment, that because these repro ballot props are on the ballot, that could have more folks show up for Dems up and down the ballot. What do you feel about that?
I think it's very real. There is absolutely a turnout effect when you put reproductive rights ballot measures up for sort of a direct democracy play. But I will also say that it can draw a lot of split ticket voting as well, where just because you get a boost of 5 points for a repro rights ballot measure does not mean you're going to get a 5-point boost for all Democrats in the state. Like, lots of people are willing to vote Republican for certain candidates and then vote yes or the proper vote for abortion related ballot measure, even if those two things are contradictory in some cases, where you're supporting electeds who support abortion bans and then protecting your abortion rights another way.
Check that abortion ban. Yeah, there were some people I spoke to on the doors this weekend who were voting for Trump, but they were also voting for the Democratic congressional candidate we were canvassing for.
Yep, it's real. They are out there.
So, eyes on Arizona. That's one state.
And don't forget, in 2022, Chris Mays, who was the person to stand in the way of that abortion ban, won her statewide race in Arizona by less than 280 votes.
Ooh.
So,
I have chills.
Yeah.
Okay, Georgia. I love Georgia. Georgia is a hot mess right now.
Yep.
So Joe Biden won Georgia in 2020 by 12,284 votes. And not without Donald Trump sending Rudy Giuliani on a plane down to Atlanta to try to interfere and overturn the election results of the state of Georgia.
Right. We all remember when he was looking for those votes, when he called.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 780 votes.
And that he's waiting for his criminal trial in Georgia to begin.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the news on what they're doing with the ballots?
You know I did.
Okay, tell the people.
So Republicans, in their infinite wisdom, where they want to ruin their cake and eat it too, they are now basically requiring Georgia to hand count all votes in November. This is the election board in Georgia, which has been sort of taken over and stacked with pro-Trump people. And it's also a consistent pattern across many battleground states where Republicans are saying they want election night results, that they're going to call anything that happens after election night fraud, and they are actively putting in place measures to delay and slow the counting and processing of ballots. And so they are creating this window that Trump and or MAGA can take advantage of to try to undermine the results of the election. And that is particularly concerning with a statewide hand count in Georgia because of how long that would take. And as we know from multiple studies, from nonpartisan sources, from published research, hand counting ballots is less accurate than using machines that are built for that exact purpose, that are not connected to the internet, that are not some sort of meta sponsored ballot counter. And so it's extremely concerning, and it's going to court, and they're going to try to block this ruling from the Georgia Election Board.
Yeah. Human error is real. And like, no offense to the humans, but like, I prefer a calculator to do my math than my brain.
Totally. You highlighted that the margin in Georgia was 12,000 votes, but the total number of votes cast was about 5 million.
Imagine counting that.
So if we think that they're going to hand count 5 million votes on election night, you're bonkers. You're bonkers.
Okay. North Carolina. Trump won North Carolina by 74,483 votes. North Carolina currently has Democratic governor Roy Cooper. You may recall the name. He was in VP stakes for a little bit. Did you know that North Carolina has a rule that if you're not in the state, if you're the governor and you're not in the state for more than 3 days, and technically you're no longer governor, or that your lieutenant governor is then actually in power? And that is a problem because the current lieutenant governor of North Carolina is a monster? Question mark?
Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, for real.
An unhinged, dangerous individual. It is truly shocking to me that he even got elected in the first place. But I'm hoping because he is so off the rails, it may close that margin a little bit. So Mark Robinson is his current lieutenant governor, and he's running for governor against Josh Stein, the Democratic candidate for governor. Roy Cooper, his term is up. He can't run again. Let's talk about Mark Robinson a little bit.
Yeah, he's kind of the type of candidate whose section of controversial statements and scandals on Wikipedia is longer than his like professional bio or early life and education or whatever. It's crazy. He's a Holocaust denier, famously and outlandishly homophobic and transphobic, says horrifying things about every marginalized group under the sun. And even with all of that, even with all of the outrageous things that he has said that have caused a lot of backlash, he still found a way to outdo it all. When CNN dug up his comments from a porn site message board on which he was a prolific poster about a decade ago, probably like the pièce de résistance being that he called himself a black Nazi, but there was just a whole lot of gems.
He also said that he wished slavery was still around and that he would certainly have a few. I know, it's truly horrific. Not to mention the, blatant hypocrisy around sexuality and all of that.
Right.
He's an unmitigated nightmare.
100%. And this is like separate and apart, far away, the greatest scandal that any elected official is facing in this election cycle and in just recent memory. He was immediately uninvited from all Trump events, and Trump went to North Carolina shortly after this was published and didn't even mention his name, which is extremely rare and unheard of for someone to not talk about a gubernatorial candidate in a competitive race in a battleground state, like as at a presidential rally in that state. So he's trying to distance himself. All of his top staff have quit. His campaign manager, his finance director, I think the field director, like basically all of his consultants, everyone has left him. He's left with like 3 interns basically to run his campaign. And he's still trying to deny the story, but like everything matches. The math is mathing. Some Republican firm offered to like dig up the ISP of who posted these things to prove that it wasn't him. And he was like, no, I'm good.
Because he knows he did it.
Because he knows he did it.
Did you see JD, who like clearly JD, I'm sure, had a ton of media training, and it's just never landed with him. It never landed. He said that the Mark Robinson allegations are not necessarily reality.
Well, look, the allegations are pretty far out there, of course, but I know that allegations aren't necessarily reality.
Do you believe him that those were not his posts?
I don't not believe him. I don't believe him.
He's like, I'm just here to sell my own lies, and I can't be worried about keeping other people's lies straight also.
Regardless, Kamala Harris's team is still trying to keep a strong connection between Mark Robinson and Donald Trump because, you know, before this scandal, all the other scandals were okay for Donald Trump, but this one really put him over the edge. He had called Mark Robinson.
He's been an unbelievable Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson. This is Martin Luther King on steroids. One of the great stars of the party, one of the great stars in politics, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson.
They've been backing him during all of his nonsense, and we knew who he was. We did not need the 4chan drop to know that this is who Mark Robinson is.
Right, I know. It's like, who's surprised? Not me. And why is everyone dropping now?
So North Carolina is a very winnable battleground state. Trump won by less than 1.5 points in 2020. And keep in mind, Ohio, which people still kind of think of as a battleground state, he won by 8 points.
Whoa.
So North Carolina is purple. And we need to like absolutely keep Mark Robinson out of office. And we need to show that it is winnable for Kamala this year.
Yeah, if you or someone you know lives in North Carolina, text them, make sure they have a voting plan, and talk to them about the election.
It's
giving. I'm always a little annoyed with the stay in your lane commentary on celebrities, especially from people wearing political hats. But we got an especially good one from the Good Liars.
What do you think about Taylor Swift?
I can't stand her. I think she should just mind her own business and sing songs.
What do you think about Kid Rock?
I like Kid Rock.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think he's a great American.
Kid Rock has a song where he says, "F you" to AOC and Nancy Pelosi.
I wish more people would sing that song.
But he's not minding his own business.
Yeah, but they're assholes.
It's giving hypocrisy. It's giving case in point. It's giving pot kettle. Like, thank you for proving our point.
Yeah, it's definitely giving freedom of speech for everyone who agrees with me. That is the Republican way.
Yeah, it's giving I'm a victim.
Always.
Always. Poor you. Poor, like, what did Nancy Pelosi ever do to you besides try and get you more rights?
I mean, I don't blame them for hating Nancy Pelosi. She's like one of the most dominant political forces of our lifetime.
But it's not about that. It's about that she's a woman. Notice how they were both women, AOC, Nancy Pelosi.
There's something to that. I can see that.
There's something to the patriarchy. There's something.
No, I agree. I mean, I was going to say, like,
confusing.
I mean, we sort of have the same thing with Mitch McConnell, where he's like the ultimate villain to people on the left.
Yeah.
And it's because he's really good at his job. And so is she.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the idea that celebrities need to be robots and perform for you and not have opinions is like just not interesting. I'm like, boring. Next.
Tomato, tomato, tomato. Fox News has another conspiracy about who is running the country.
And the other thing is regarding Jill Biden saying we got to wrap this up. Maybe she's saying that because she's running the country.
Yeah, she was at the cabinet meeting on Friday. She was at the head of the table. Here's a picture of her. And I was watching Fox and Friends Weekend, and I turn on the TV and I see her at the end of the table. I'm like, where is he? Why isn't he at this meeting?
Yeah, there she is.
Miranda Devine writes, who exactly is running the country? Certainly appears to be Jill Biden and not Joe Biden. And it goes to the overall question, Who's running things?
For those just listening, the camera starts and ends with Joe Biden.
In the president's chair at the cabinet meeting, which is like
Yeah.
an assigned like seating situation. There's a specific way they sit in that room. I've been in it, and it has their titles on the back of the chairs. They're so obsessed with this whole conspiracy around Jill and Joe.
I know, it's so weird.
I'm like, he's not running. He's literally doing his job. You can see his schedule every day, the
Every
events that
day.
he's at, the meetings that he's holding, the open press things that he's doing. Like, you know that this is misinformation.
Okay, group chat, Brian. I have to admit something. I'm only halfway through the first episode of Survivor.
Let's wrap here. Go ahead and go finish that. We need you to watch it right away.
Well, I know who got voted off because it was all over the internet, but I know that it was like it's titled the most perfect episode ever or something. So I know there's going to be a meltdown at some point, and someone might get injured. So I just need to I need to sit down and watch it, like finish it tonight.
I won't judge you. The more important thing is Survivor is back. And my continued efforts to turn this into a Survivor podcast are alive and well. And I will be sneaking in references to the current season throughout every episode between now and the election. Any reference I can sneak past our producer is my goal. The main newsworthy bit there is that John Lovett is on this season of Survivor, and he is one of the co-hosts of Pod Save America. And so, yeah, I've always, as we've said before, I won't reiterate, I've always wanted to do the show, and I feel like he's the closest thing that I'm going to have to a proxy.
Actually, I think that you're still in the running given the outcome of the first episode.
Okay, well, if you're going to say that, then we have to put a spoiler alert somewhere.
Oh, okay. Well, spoiler, people should know that.
Yeah, I guess it's a week old. It's a week old. That's fair.
So I think there's still opportunity for a white gay podcast host.
Yeah, if they're looking for someone who'd be better TV, hit me up.
You'd be ruthless.
I would be. That is correct.
Yeah. If we were on a tribe, I'd be like, we're in an alliance, period. So this has been in my group chat a lot, and I'm guilty of this, of talking about it, but everyone's talking about her, Olivia Nuzzi, who was a New York Mag reporter who has to take leave of absence because she had some sort of inappropriate relationship with RFK Jr., which is just journalistic standards 101. You don't have even a deep friendship with a source because then it's no longer credible. So that's a buzz. And then someone else came out last night saying that he also had a relationship with her. It's just like the woman never wins in these situations, even though like they're just doing the same thing as the men, but it's all over the news.
I have to say, the most shocking part of the story to me is that anyone would want to spend any amount of time privately with RFK.
Period.
I wouldn't have coffee with that man. I wouldn't want to walk past him on a sidewalk. Like, I truly could not be less engaged by that energy. I'm like, get away from me.
Well, he literally has had a worm in his brain. So that's the level of conversation you're having with him.
Did you see my post about Celsius? That was my group chat, for real. I stirred up some shit.
Why?
Because Politico, which is obviously the way to get news in front of me, if you want me to see something, did this story about how Celsius is sort of mismarketing itself.
I did see this.
Essential energy instead of as an energy drink, and how that's actually marketing to women primarily who don't drink Red Bull for the most part, but are drinking Celsius by the case. But it actually, I didn't know this until I read this, which is embarrassing because I've had more than my fair share of Celsius.
I won't touch Celsius for this reason.
200 milligrams of caffeine in it. That's
insane.
It's more than 2 cups of coffee or 6 cans of Coke. Eek.
Well, I drink a lot of coffee, but yeah, I mean, I was introduced to Celsius by someone I work with, and I thought it was a wellness drink at first. And then I looked in the back of the can and I was like, whoa, 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 this is not good for you.
I'm going to pretend like I don't know this now through November 5th, and then I'll have an awakening.
Yeah, I have a friend also in politics who kind of like microdoses it. She like gets the powder packs and she just like pours a little in her like water all day.
Oh my God.
She says it really works. They're like her little potions that she makes.
Well, yeah, it's literally crack. Like,
yeah.
The Jew crew was my group chat in a big way.
Oh, the photo, although I guess I am the Gentile, but This Instagram post goes up and it's all my friends and not me. And I go, wait, when was this photo taken? But then Brian did call me out because they did call my name a couple times. And I said,
We were screaming for you to come over, and you literally were like, "No." And we were like, "Okay."
I was having a lovely conversation with the volunteers for Susan Wild's campaign who were going to drive us around town all day.
Between that and Charlie XCX, my group chats were flutter. For our good vibe this week, we have another record that has been set by Kamala Harris. In addition to the record number of tie-breaking votes that she cast in the US Senate as vice president, in addition to the records that she has set in the amount of money that she raised upon campaign launch and in just an extremely short amount of time, she has now set a record for the largest jump in favorability for any politician since George Bush and 9/11.
Oh, not the 9/11 reference.
It's true. After
Yeah.
9/11, in this like moment of unity that again feels very far away these days, but for the country, George Bush's favorability rating jumped up. And this is on par with that. That is the impact that Kamala Harris is having on the country in bringing this huge coalition of people together. She has jumped 16 points since July, which is just like a rocket ship.
Rocket ship. And I'm going to double down on, the vibes are high, but vibes are not votes.
True.
Take this energy, people. Text your friends and family, call people, volunteer. Brian, what did you say on Instagram the other day?
Your vote is not a prize to be won. It is a tool to protect the people that you love.
Yes. So just make sure everyone has a voting plan.
Absolutely.